So let's talk about the loan application procedures now. If you're going to buy a house, obviously most people will need a loan, although there are some that pay cash, and God bless them. Praise God. But most of us have to get a loan if we're going to buy a house, this loan application procedure I think is kind of common sense. Probably most of us by this point in our life have applied for a loan before, so at least got some idea how that works. But to go through it a little bit, obviously the first thing we do is meet. We have initial contact with the lender, and that's where they're going to explain the different loan programs that might be worth looking at for what you're trying to accomplish. We're going to have to determine your eligibility, at least on the front end. There's some other things that have to do a little bit further down the road, but you can at least get a good idea of what somebody might be eligible for. For example, they ask you, well, how much money do you make? What's your gross monthly income? We already talked about that. We know that's a big part of it. And you tell them, well, I don't have a job, but I'm planning on getting one soon. Well, you're probably not getting a loan right away, right? But so anyway, we can figure out some degree of eligibility in this initial contact, and then assuming everything goes well at that point, then we can go ahead and start the application. At that point, obviously, hopefully you will have already selected a lender that you plan to use. If you decide not to do this yourself, remember we talked about earlier, you could maybe hire a mortgage broker to help you find a lender, negotiate the loan for you. Those are some options. But we've got to find the lender, complete the application, a location inspection. And I'm not spending a whole lot of time on most of these. I think it's just kind of common sense, really. They will be running your credit check. And I will say here, this is something they typically require you to pay for up front, even before you can submit your application. But it does cost some amount of money to run your credit. You will have to pay for that up front. That might be worth remembering there. And then once they've run all the checks, then it's time for the approval process. And typically they will lay out some conditions that you must meet, certainly before closing. Okay, but if they do have certain conditions that must be met, maybe certain loans have to be paid off, credit cards got to be paid down to a certain amount. Whatever those conditions are, it will have to be met before you will close and actually get the loan. But then assuming you've met all those conditions, then we go ahead and close. So that's a little oversight on the loan application procedures. But then we get into these, your credit score, FICO scores. You hear it called more times than not. But this was a system that was developed by Fair Isaac Corporation, and they primarily used three bureaus, where basically, and we're talking about credit bureaus here, that actually report credit transactions. Okay, so if you borrow money, if you have a credit card, that's considered borrowing money. How do you pay it? Do you pay it on time? Do you just make minimum payments? All this stuff all this information is going to be maintained with these three different bureaus, as TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. Those are the three major credit bureaus that we report to. But they will take all this information, all the information that is reported to them, and they will come up with a score, right? A credit score. And the range could be anywhere from 300, which is on the low end. And I can tell you, if you're anywhere near 300, you're probably wasting everybody's time if you're trying to get a loan. but it could go up as high as 850. 850 is the highest score. So, obviously the higher the score, the less risk you present. That means you've got a history of paying your loans, and you pay your loans on time, right? And I will tell you, that means you get better terms with the next loan you try to get, like a mortgage, right? So, they will. We're not going to get into how low they'll go. Different types of loans require different minimum scores. But I will tell you, if you don't have a good credit score, you're not going to like the terms of that loan. Or maybe you just don't care. I don't know. But if you don't care, that might have something to do why your credit score is the way it is. But, I hear lenders say, well, as long as you get a 550 credit score or 500 credit score, we can loan you the money. Well, they might can loan you the money, but I'm telling you, that's going to be a very expensive loan. Very expensive, I can assure you. So it might be worth figuring out why your credit score is so low and then fix it. Fix that problem. And I will just tell you, just from my personal opinion, I don't think you have to go pay some of the people that say they'll help you lower your credit score. It's common sense. Okay? Pay off what you owe. That's what you got to do. And if you're having trouble paying anything you owe, why do you think it's going to get better when you go borrow more money? Right? So maybe, if you got a bad or very low credit score, that may not be the time to borrow money. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. My opinion. Obviously, a big part of this is going to be dealing with your credit history. It says they want at least one open credit account. It's been open for at least 6 or more months. Obviously, if you don't have any accounts or a credit card, for example, then there's just no history. So we don't know what you won't have a credit score, right? I know there are his name slips my mind, a multi-billionaire that says you never borrow money. Must be nice, is all I can say. But, I can't even think of his name. But, I don't know how you're going to borrow money without credit, okay? And if you don't have any credit, that could be a concern to the lender. Not suggesting they won't give you a loan. Obviously, if you can show you've got hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in a checking account somewhere, that they might not care so much about your credit score. Okay. But anyway, so how is your credit score calculated? There's several components that make up your credit score. But you see right here, the biggest is your payment history. Do you pay your bills on time? 35% of whatever your credit score is going towards your payment history. Paying on time. By the way, if it says, if you got a bill that says it's due on the 10th of the month, then you don't write a check and put it in the mailbox on the 10th. They're not going to receive it. It's going to be a late payment. So it doesn't matter when you dated your check. It's when they received your check or your payment, right? But I hear people tell me that all the time. It says it's due on the 10th, and so I send it out on the 10th, okay? That's not helping your credit score at all. So, what's the number one factor in your credit score? The biggest factor? Paying on time. Your payment history. And then the amount owed is 30%. If you owe a lot of money, that can certainly have a big impact there. But then you see it kind of drops off in how important some of this stuff is. But the length of credit history, Older accounts improve your score. It does say that, but that's at 15%. Y'all, new credit, 10%. The types of credit, 10%. But y'all, the main thing here, number one, is paying on time. I'm just telling you, that's the biggie. That's how you get your credit score up there. And then, y'all, there are some do's and don'ts when you're trying to improve your credit score. Y'all, here's some do's. Y'all, again, pay on time. Reduce the total debt and revolving balances. Y'all, you don't want to have that. And by the way, if you have like a credit card, I know a lot of people that they'll have $20, $30, $50,000 line of credit on their credit where they can actually put on their credit card $30, $40, $50,000. And then they tell me, well, I never use that. I never charge that much. But I'm telling you, if you've got say a $40,000 line of credit on your credit card, y'all, that's considered debt. Okay, even though you may not owe anything on the card. But you have access to it. You could be in that much debt later today, as far as the bank's concerned. So you really don't want to keep a large credit amount on your credit card. Okay, that's not going to help you much with your credit score. It does say review your annual credit reports for errors. Y'all, just make sure that somebody hadn't reported something wrong, and then obviously you dispute those inaccuracies, get them fixed if you see them show up. But then they list some things you do not do. Y'all, this will actually hurt your credit score, where you start closing unused accounts unnecessarily. Y'all, that could actually go against you, believe it or not. But if you don't need it, in my opinion, I'd say get rid of it. But don't do it right before you're getting ready to get a loan to buy a house or something, right? If you got many different credit cards at one time, that's an issue. When you apply for multiple accounts before a big loan, frequently moving debt between accounts, that's noticeable. And then allow accounts to become delinquent or go into collection. It sounds like to me, you don't even have to pay these professionals to help you get your credit score where it is. Make your payments and make your payments on time. Okay? That's how you get a higher credit score. And I'm telling you, that will have a significant impact on the terms of any loan that you decide to get, meaning it'll be a much cheaper loan, right? So there are some things you need to know about applying for the loan.